Episode 23, Winded City Countdown. This is exciting. This is the one that's got Ben all tickled up tonight because, as Ben has mentioned on this podcast and mentioned to us before, this is his time of year. Who cares about the game being played on the field? It's the game being played in the front office that Ben Russo cares about, and he's excited to talk about that. I'm Scott Sterling. I'm joined here with Ben Russo and Matt Urich, and we've got lots to talk about as we record this, less than 48 hours away from the NFL draft, and the Bears pick number 11. A lot of excitement there. Second pick for this regime, right? This is going to be Pace's second pick, but the first with his scouting people, if I'm not mistaken. So
that is correct.
we'll get into that a little bit here. But I wanted to start the show. We need to do some congratulations. 2 weeks ago we had to congratulate Matt Urich because he got re-signed with Bleacher Report and is doing.
You almost said Bleachers, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I was very careful not to. But he got signed back on with Bleacher Report to do some work for the NFL Draft and the Bears. So we were really happy. But then he had another milestone this week. Ben, did you see the milestone for Mr. Urich this week?
No, I missed it.
Well, it is now Matt Urich, Subline Bleacher Report, Subline 2, one-time bowling all-star. That's right, Matt Urich is a bowling all-star in the Streeter Bowling Alley Bowling League. Let's hear it for Matt Urich. He not only can he write, but he can bowl mediocre enough to get onto an all-star team.
Hey man, that 159 average, that'll get you places. Only took me like 6 years to get to that point.
We were talking a bit about Ron Coomer this weekend, and is he just a one-time all-star, Matt?
He is. I got to beat Ronnie next year.
So if you could get another all-star team, you are right in there with Ron Coomer, which is tremendous.
I'd venture a guess and say Ron Coomer has at least a dozen
300 games.
Oh my goodness! So really, I was scrolling on Facebook waiting for you guys to get on the hangout here, and oh man, I saw that. I was like, we got to make sure we call that out because that is just the accomplishment.
It's a proud moment, It feels good. Feels really good.
Especially when things don't feel like they're going your way all the time, Matt.
Are you participating in the skills competition?
Yeah, you should see me throw a bowling ball with my eyes closed.
Is that similar to what Olsen does when he bowls?
Hey, opened or closed, it don't matter. It's still not going down the right lane.
I don't even know Olsen at all, and I'm making jokes about him being blind. I'm a bastard. I know it. All right. That's enough bullshit. Let's get to the real meat. The Bears pick 11 this week. 1 and 2 in this draft are kind of not really. The only question is who's going 1, and even that doesn't seem to be a question. It appears to be Goff, is last I saw. So it's going to be Goff 1 and then Wentz 2, and then from there, who knows what's going to happen here? If there's going to be more trades, a lot of options that could fall to the Bears at 11. There's talk of a trade at 11 with the Jets, but who knows if that's really serious or not. Matt, do you have any? I know that it's pretty tight-lipped up there at Hallis Hall. What are your thoughts going into this draft for the Bears at number 11?
Yeah, that's the thing. I've heard very little. I do know that they very much like DeForest Buckner a lot from Oregon. Don't see any way in which he drops to 11. I don't think the Bears would move up. I just think, given this regime, given the youth they need to add, I don't see them sacrificing picks. It could happen, but I doubt it. But the thing for me is I really think that there's a chance that there's 5, 6, 7 guys maybe that could be the pick at number 11. And like I texted you guys earlier today was, other than them going for a guy like a Paxton Lynch at 11th overall, I honestly wouldn't be that disappointed with anybody. We did talk about Leonard Floyd there. Not a fan of his, the pass rusher from Georgia. He's way too thin, way too small for size-wise. He's got good height, but he's just body-wise, he's not that big. But I honestly feel like there's there's probably about 4 or 5, 6 guys that I think they could take there that can have immediate impacts this year, and I honestly don't think a lot of people would be that disappointed if they took them.
Ben, what are you looking for at the 11th for the Bears?
Yeah, I mean, like Matt said, I think the dream situation is DeForest Buckner, but there's pretty much, I mean, I say 0%, but it's the NFL draft, so who really knows? But I'll say 0% chance that he's actually there at 11. Of the guys I've heard, and again, when I say heard, it's basically your so-called NFL draft experts and their mock drafts. I mean, you've seen Leonard Floyd quite a bit. Like I said, I think the consensus between us is we don't like that pick. This is a guy who's added 20 pounds in the offseason, and he's still only 244 pounds, and he's, 6'6", something like that. I don't hate Ezekiel Elliott. I think that would be a decent pick. It gives you another offensive threat. There's people saying that this is the best running back prospect they've seen in the last decade. That's saying something considering when you look at some of the guys who've been drafted and who've been producing in the NFL. I mean, but this is, to me, when I watch Ezekiel Elliott, it's Matt Forte with a little more speed. That's really what he looks like. A little more speed, a little more power. And that's saying something. I mean, Matt Forte, obviously, we know how productive he was. To me, the realistic pick, and I think we talked about it, would be Shaq Lawson. That's the guy who, I mean, I think if I have it correct, he had like 25.5 tackles for loss last season alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. I mean, just the idea of having, obviously with the Bears running a 3-4 to go McPhee, Jarrell Freeman, Danny Trevathan, and Shaq Lawson as your 4 linebackers. I mean, that's some support for your for your team. I mean, that's a good young core to have right there. But yeah, I'm with Matt. There's 6, 7, 8 guys, honestly, that I'm not unhappy with. It would be very difficult for the Bears to screw this up, in my opinion. But again, we'll find out in a couple of days. So.
Yeah, I was listening. I think it was Boers and Bernstein the other day, and one of the things they talked about was
you didn't. Did you listen to their bullshit show today of the worst hour of radio where
the Who's Your Guy?
I hate
they read out of a magazine.
That is the lamest thing. I've been on that for. They've been doing this for like 3 or 4 years. Absolutely hate it. They have callers call up. They say, "Who's your guy?" You tell them a name. Bernstein looks him
out
up.
of a magazine.
Yeah, Bernstein looks it up in his scouting profile magazine. He thinks it's hilarious when talent evaluators use words like he's got sand in his pants or stupid shit. Like I think it's the worst. I hate this time of year because they do that shit. They'll do this. I think they do it again on Wednesday. They'll probably do it again on Thursday. Such a lame show. Hate that they do it. They think it's funny. It's not.
It's just a waste of an hour.
Yeah.
So in between all of the wasted time on the radio, one of the things I thought was really interesting that they talked about that they claim to have been hearing from people is that this regime of the Bears is about minimizing risk. And when looking at the prospects and who could be a good prospect for the Cubs, I'm watching the Cubs game as we're doing this, who could be a good prospect for the Bears is Ezekiel Elliott because he seems to have the highest floor of anybody in the draft. Whether that's true or not, I'm not as into the draft as you guys are. Not like I used to be when I was younger. I just, what happens, and we'll see how it goes. But I thought it was just an interesting commentary that Ezekiel Elliott represents the lowest amount of risk there, maybe at 11, and even though running back isn't the greatest need on this team, it would make a lot of sense for the Cubs, God damn it, the Bears to go there because he represents the safest option. Is that a wrong idea, Matt?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a good pick. This draft to me is I think like outside of the 2 quarterbacks who I think are going to get drafted too high, but I understand why they'd get drafted that high. We talked about this last week. It makes sense. I know you need to get a quarterback. It is what it is. But I think numbers like 3 through 11, 12, right around there, a lot of those players are all sort of in the same mix, same impact. While I agree that some guys have higher upside than others, guys like to me like a guy like a Joey Bosa or a Jalen Ramsey or Ezekiel Elliott have these floors, like this base that you sort of know you're going to get at least that with them, while other guys like maybe a Ronnie Stanley has a higher ceiling than you think. But then like I heard somebody today, I can't remember who it was, talk about how like picks 20 through about 55 can all, it wouldn't surprise you if a guy gets picked 20th or a guy gets picked 55th, just because there's such a discrepancy after those top like 12, 13 players. So I think the Bears are in a decent enough spot. To me, I like Ezekiel Elliott. A little tease here for my piece on Bleacher Report on Wednesday, so you go back in time, I guess, depending on when you're listening to this. I have a really brief 7-round mock draft that actually Ezekiel Elliott is who I have the Bears taking with the first pick. But then on Thursday, I also have another like full-length mock draft. It's mixed up a little bit differently. But I wouldn't be surprised if he went 11th overall. I think he's an extremely talented player. I think he helps a Bears offense that a lot of people think is fine, but it's not. Their offense wasn't that great last year, and I think people think just it has to be defense with that first pick, but I think you could do a lot worse than Ezekiel Elliott at number 11.
Ben, why do you think, and maybe I have an observation bias here, why do you think the draft feels this way, where there's just this jumble from 3 to 12 of essentially, I mean, and had there not been trades, I mean, it really would have been a jumble 1 to 12 of, here are these 12 guys, and they can go anywhere from 1 to 12, and nothing would surprise us. Why do you think that's what this draft is?
I mean, I think, honestly, I think it's because we don't really remember, but this is how all drafts are. I think this one's a little bit different because there really isn't that elite quarterback prospect. I mean, you're talking about 3 guys that could go in the top 10. I mean, realistically, could go in the top 7. You could have 3 quarterbacks go. And honestly, I don't know that anybody, any of these draft, like I said, so-called draft experts have them, slotted there in their overall ranking. So you're talking about overdrafting guys. But then you add things like, maybe the best player in the draft, Miles Jack, has a knee concern. This is a guy who could be a top 3 pick that may slide into the 20s because somebody reported that his knee's a ticking time bomb, and he could either have he could have a long NFL career, or in 2 or 3 years his knee could break down and he's done. So you have that kind of stuff. I mean, I think there's really not any. There doesn't seem to be those elite prospects, those guys that you go, oh my god, I have to have this guy. There's a lot of guys like you look at like an A'Shawn Robinson. He could be a great pick at 11, but a lot of people think he's a 2-down player. He's not going to be a guy that could be in there on 3rd down. But I think that's where it is, and you have so many schemes and all this other stuff. It's certain players fit certain schemes. Going back to something I think I heard on the radio this morning, it was talking about the best player available versus drafting for need, and the best way they put it was
Brad Biggs, I think is what you had texted us.
Yeah. So essentially saying like, if there's a cornerback, let's say the Bears need a cornerback, do you stretch for say like a Vernon Hargreaves, who maybe isn't graded higher than that you don't have graded higher than Ezekiel Elliott because you need a cornerback? Well, if that guy doesn't pan out or only meets the level you have him graded to, in 2 years you're going to need another cornerback. Whereas if you take an Ezekiel Elliott, where the Bears don't necessarily need a running back right now, but if he ends up being, in that tier with Todd Gurley or Adrian Peterson or even Matt Forte, in 2 years you don't need a running back. And nobody's talking about how bad of a pick that was. So you might get your bumps early, but that's where I think at this point you just trust Pace. You trust that he's taking the best player available, not necessarily where do they, what do they need? Because honestly, you could pick anybody and it would fill a need at this point. But I think just trust Pace. I think he's at least earned that. I think he's done a great job so far. Hopefully he makes the right decision and we find out and it's an impactful player. So
for sure. So with that, let's get to the list for the week, because the draft will be fun and we'll have a full breakdown of that, our weekly next week, now that the Hawks are done. And as excited as we are for the Cubs and the Sox, in all reality, it is regular season baseball. So, the games, take them as a grain of salt. So unless something major happens there, we won't really have a lot to talk about with baseball or hockey or basketball. So we'll have a full breakdown next week of this draft for the Bears. But this list, man, this list it was a lot of fun to
but
make.
very sad.
But very, very sad. And so it is the 10 worst draft picks by the Chicago Bears, and the earliest one on this list is 1995. So we're talking the last 20 drafts, and we won't know if any players from this draft will be really bad for a couple of years. But you look back, and this is a who's who of what the fuck.
And the thing is too, we could have went 20 deep on this. I mean, in all honesty, it's just
easily gone 20 deep.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we tried to make it like the early picks. Like there was a lot of bad late picks, but I think if you're looking for like the impact, like okay, yeah, 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, there you can make mistakes, but at the same time, like, what are you really expecting from those guys? But
and NFL teams are generally reaching there, right? Like, we think this guy, his ceiling is tremendously high.
Yeah, he might have the skills, but he needs, things need to be refined, but we think we could teach him sort of stuff. So, yeah, I don't blame teams for reaching on a guy in, like, the 5th or 6th round.
So we've got for tonight our 10 worst, and it starts with number 10. Oh, number 10, and it is one Brandon Harden. He was a safety from Oregon State, is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a 3rd round pick for the Chicago Bears. He was taken 79th overall, and he never touched the field.
In his career.
Not just with
the Bears, but also with the New York Jets.
Coming out, there was a lot to like,
but there wasn't, because he didn't even play in 2011.
Yeah.
There was a lot to like in terms of what people had seen the last time he had taken the field.
Well,
but you are absolutely right, Ben. But the problem was he hadn't taken the field in 2 seasons.
Well, and the thing too was in 2010, before his injury, he was a cornerback the whole year. The first time he truly played safety was after the 2011 season, he was able to play in the East-West Shrine game. So he played safety in the East-West Shrine game, and apparently, for whatever reason, Phil Emery fell in love with the guy, and that was in Emery's first draft, too.
Surprise.
Yeah, imagine that, because Emery, that was one of the first guys, other than Shea McClellan, who we'll discuss later, that Emery touted because of his athleticism, because of his potential.
Special teams.
Yeah, and what he could. I mean, the thing was, I love this. I'm looking now. Mike Mayock at the time of the pick says that Harden's a big, good-looking kid who will definitely play inside in Chicago. I don't even know what that means. What does he mean, play inside? Does that mean nickel? I don't know if they were still viewing him
inside the field. He's going to play inside the field, so it could be anywhere, Matt.
Between the numbers.
Yeah, apparently Mike Mayock had no idea, and it was just spitballing off the top of his head. But yeah, Harden's biggest issue was he lowered his head in a preseason game, hurt his neck, was placed on injured reserve, and then I remember he got upset because he didn't think he should have been placed on injured reserve because he was talking. So I don't remember who he spoke with, but it said that within 3 or 4 weeks he was back being healthy. But whatever, he was terrible. So
he was terrible, and he's not completely. I mean, ultimately a 3rd round pick. So whatever, but it just when you think about the Phil Emery era, it's so. At
the end of the day, your 3rd round pick can't never take a snap in the NFL. He has to play.
Yeah, it's becoming inexcusable to have that be be a 3rd round pick. Your 3rd round picks have to be players nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
they have to be players, and unfortunately, he was not a player at all because he didn't play. So that's just a taste of what this list is. Number 9 is one of my favorite Chicago Bears because he gave us one of my favorite quotes of all time. Ben, do you know what the quote I'm about to say is?
Off the top of my head, no.
David Terrell do what David Terrell do.
And that be bad at football.
Yes. Really bad at football. David Terrell, wide receiver out of the University of Michigan. He is our number 9 on this list, and he did not have a good career, and that's why he's on the list. Ben, you want to talk a little bit about David Terrell and what David Terrell did not do for the Chicago Bears?
Well, I actually do love David Terrell. I actually owned a David Terrell jersey. Probably just another great purchase for me in my running trend of great purchases for jerseys. But yeah, he never really panned out, did he? He was just not good. I mean, again, we could sit here and talk about the wonderful quarterback play that they had, but I'm not going to really use that as an excuse here. He just wasn't good. I mean, you're talking about a guy played 4 years with the Bears. 1 year was injury shortened. It was a wasted pick. I'm trying to remember that draft off the top of my head. I don't remember who else they could have gotten, but I do remember that they targeted a wide receiver, and the guy had the skill set, but he was a nutcase and never really produced anything. I mean, ever.
Yeah, ask, Ben. Who else could they have had? Corn Robinson, Jamal Reynolds, Dan Morgan, Damian Lewis, Marcus Stroud, Kenyatta Walker, Rod Gardner, Santana Moss, Steve Hutchinson, Jeff Backus, Casey Hampton, Adam Archuleta. Oh man!
Hey, we had Adam Archuleta.
We did. Nate Clemens, Bill Allen, Deuce McAllister, Willie Middlebrooks, Freddie Mitchell.
That was it. Deuce. That's okay. Now I remember. Didn't the Bears really want Deuce McAllister, but they didn't get him because like some sort of injury or something like that?
Yeah, I think he had some knee stuff going on.
So yeah, that
was
a busted pick. But I could have sworn I read somewhere that they really wanted Deuce McAllister. But yeah, I mean David Terrell, again, he was a head case. Just couldn't get anything going. I mean, you're talking about a number 8 overall pick who averaged 29 yards a game in his career.
Jesus Christ.
54 games, he had 9 touchdowns. And I mean, this was a guy that, he was a big, 6'3", 215 pounds. I mean, he had everything that you needed, except it wasn't there upstairs.
Was crazy productive at Michigan. I mean, when he came in, I mean, he was a guy that I remember being very excited about, thinking he was going to be the next great thing. I do have real quick a David Terrell story. First ever Bears game I ever went to was his rookie year with my dad. We were sitting in the north end zone. We had like 5th or 6th row seats. It was awesome for me. I was like 14, 15 years old, however old I was. And Bears are down like 3 points or something. The offense is coming our way. A nice, beautiful pass lobbed up to David Terrell in the corner of the end zone, straight through his fingertips. And I was taking a picture at the time because I'm like, I'm gonna get this touchdown on camera. Snapped it, and like the picture is of the ball coming off of his fingertips. It is like so symbolic of what David Terrell was in Chicago. Just a big bumbling disappointment.
So David Terrell did not do things for the Chicago Bears. I think he also had like a cash money quote at one point too. I remember David Terrell saying something about I get that cash money for every touchdown, something like that. He was just
all 9 of them.
Didn't get much cash money.
Yeah.
No. You know what was amazing though? I'm looking at his Wikipedia, and he tried out for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2009. And they signed a Monty Toomer instead. So
that's when you know you're bad.
And then he was arrested in 2013. All right, on to number 8 on our list. And this one's just painful. The number 14 overall pick. It's even more painful when you look at that 08 draft and look who's drafted at number 15, and that would be one Chris Williams. And Ben, do you know who was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs at number 15?
Brandon Albert.
Sure was. They had
Just look at everybody who was drafted behind Chris Williams. Brandon Albert, I'd rather have. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, I'd rather have. Goster Charles, he's not that great, but he's still better than Chris Williams.
He's in the league still, isn't he?
This is
I think so.
This is pre Jay Cutler, I believe, to the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Flacco went number 18. You had Jeff Ota, who was a good offensive tackle, but he had injury problems. Aqib Talib, Sam Baker. You get into Felix Jones, Rashard Mendenhall, but then you got Dwayne Brown, another offensive lineman who now he's got injuries, but he was one of the NFL elite there. I mean, so this one isn't. I mean, he sucked with the Bears. He had a little stint with the Rams, but this one to me has more of the what could have been, what you could have had feel to it, more than just God, what a bad pick that was.
You know, go ahead, Matt.
And I was going to say the big issue with him was everybody knew he had the back injury.
Yeah, that they weren't. It wasn't a hidden thing.
It was no secret. It wasn't something the Bears found out after the fact that he had the like herniated disc issues or whatever it was, and that's what makes it frustrating. And to Ben's point too, I mean the guys that were left on the board. I mean Brandon Albert would have been a much more solid pick. A guy like Joe Flacco would have made more sense at the time too. You know, pre-Cutler, Chris John. I mean, granted they got Matt Forte in the second round, so I guess he can't really fault them for not going after a running back. But yeah, leaving the guys on the board that they left on the board to go with the guy that had a ton of question marks. I mean, the potential was there. I understood it. You knew why he was projected to be a top 15, top 20 pick, but man, that was just bad from the beginning, and he didn't work out at tackle, and they tried moving him to guard, and he played a little bit better at guard, but still he was not all that good. And then oddly enough, he went to Buffalo and ended up playing, or St. Louis and then Buffalo, and ended up playing not all that bad, and then he failed a physical last summer, and he's been out of the league ever since.
Yeah, and that 08 draft, you also had the Bears in round 3 take Earl Bennett, and 3 picks later, the same Kansas City Chiefs who got Brandon Albert went ahead and took an okay running back by the name of Jamal Charles.
Yeah, he was all right.
Yeah, he did okay for himself, so that was
panned out.
Yeah, so another nice pick there.
Jamal Charles was in that draft?
Yeah.
So they would have had. So the Chiefs got Jamal Charles, Brandon Albert, and Brandon Flowers. That's a pretty good draft.
I'm trying to find the next Kansas City pick on there. But yeah, I mean it's just just miss after miss after miss after miss. And I always love looking at the back end of drafts because here you have the Bears round 7 pick 208. Irvin Baldwin. What the fuck is an Irvin Baldwin? Is he one of the Baldwin brothers? Is that who that is?
I mean, Steven and Billy, Irvin, all those guys. He will be starring in like the 5th Flintstones movie.
Yeah. All right. Number 7. This one is near and dear to our hearts. Because I'll never forget, Ben and I, we were in a fraternity in college, and we were at our fraternity's formal. And I don't know if Ben came to me or I went to him or somebody came up to the two of us and was like, the Chicago Bears just drafted Garrett Wolfe.
I texted you guys.
Yeah,
I
that's
texted
what it was.
Ben.
And it was...
And I remember Ben's reaction. I was at some party down at ISU, and it scrolled up, and I'm like, "What? Oh my God!" And my first, the first point was excited because the 3 of us, NIU guys, Garrett Wolfe, he was amazing at NIU, extremely talented player. And then after sending it, I remember, I think I remember Ben being like, "What? No way! Like that's awesome!" And then later being like, "Well, probably not that awesome."
I mean, there wasn't really a thought that he was going to be good in the NFL because, he was 5'7", listed at 5'7".
Okay, let me tell you something. I rode the Husky bus with Garrett Wolfe in college.
Yeah, I had class with him.
That motherfucker's feet dangled sitting on the seat on the bus.
I interviewed him with God, who was it? I think I was down on the field with Ben Hutchinson. who now works out of Milwaukee. So shout out to Ben, who's definitely not listening to our podcast.
I'll tell him on Twitter we shouted him out. He'll probably listen.
Yeah, so at the 29-minute mark, tell Ben Hutchinson around the 29-minute mark we shouted out to him on the podcast. But I'm pretty sure we were talking to him, and I'm 6 foot. I'm by no means a tall guy, and I towered over Garrett Wolfe. If that guy's 5'7", then I'm 7 foot.
Yeah, he's like 5'4", 5'5". I'm like not even exaggerating.
And just so the Bears take him in the third round, and listen, it's again, this is the 2007 draft, so this is the 2 years removed from the Super Bowl. The Bears have needs, real needs, and just what are they doing?
For the record, Garrett Wolfe finished his career with 282 rushing yards.
Of course he did.
He had 1 rushing touchdown.
Wow.
I remember watching the game that he did that. But the thing we don't give him credit for, and this is where Phil Emery would have loved this guy because he was a special teams ace. 50 special teams tackles in his career.
But do you remember the fake punt he called?
Yes, I do. Yes.
he was the up back, and it was supposed to be like he made a call when there was too many men on the field. It's like a common thing that if that's what the up back's supposed to do, he's got to count out the guys, and if there's too many men on the field for the opposition, you call like a fire drill, which means hurry up and snap it. And he called the fire drill, but there were 11 players on the field, not 12. And he got stuffed like a 5-yard loss on like a 4th and 16 or something. I think it was against the Packers too.
It was the opening game against the Packers. It was bad, and Garrett Wolfe was fun to watch in college. Tore the crap out of Ball State for the single game record at one point.
I was there. Saw it.
It was awesome, but it needed to just be awesome in college.
Yeah.
And let it die there. And not go any further.
The good part, though, is the Bears totally redeemed themselves with the pick right after that, taking Michael Okwo right after they took Garrett Wolfe, back-to-back picks. So that worked out.
Yeah, that whole draft worked out.
So we're going to keep going with the common theme here where, the Bears drafted David Terrell, and there were better wide receivers, and the Bears drafted Chris Williams, and there were better tackles. And now we're on to number 6, and the Bears drafted Shea McClellan. And 2 picks later, Ben Russo. Who did the New England Patriots draft 2 picks later?
Chandler Jones.
Sure did.
Joke's on them, though. They traded Chandler Jones, and now they have Shea McClellan. So, haha. Patriots always get their man.
They do. I guess they do. Let's talk Shea McClellan.
Real fun fact as we record this on Tuesday evening on the 26th. It was 4 years ago exactly today that the Bears drafted Shea McClellan. And I only know that because I put on Facebook that day, frustrating first pick for the Bears. McClellan is a solid player, but undersized and more of a 3-4 outside linebacker. Whitney Merciless, Chandler Jones, and Courtney Upshaw were all better options.
And David DeCastro and Riley Reif and Dante Hightower, Nick Harrison Smith. We haven't had a safety in how many years, so that would have been a nice pick. God, they stink.
This is just frustrating to do. And let me tell you something.
I was really excited for this, and we're not even halfway through it. I'm depressed.
Let me tell you something. You guys just said that Shea McClellan played for the New England Patriots. I had no fucking idea. I was like, what? No, and I clicked his Wikipedia.
Yeah, they gave him like a 3-year, $12 million.
He's got a full 3 years, man. Whatever.
Like Ben said, the Patriots, they always get the guy they want. Somehow he's going to become like Rob Ninkovich.
That was the report, was that the Belichick wanted him. And if you don't think Belichick was playing somebody like a fool so that they got Chandler Jones, you're kidding yourself. Because there's no way. I mean, God damn it. I don't understand why you would take that guy. I still, to this day.
I tried talking myself into it as the pick happened too.
The picture they posted of him when he was like all pudgy and fat, and it's like, what? Like, who did you just draft? Like, I was borderline almost in the same shape he was when they drafted him.
You know it's never good when part of his highlight reel, if I'm not mistaken, was him like hiding in the blue turf in a game. Like he was wearing
Oh,
like
yeah.
they were wearing all blue and he was like laying
He was
down on the
laying
blue
down,
turf
yeah.
and then like he was out of nowhere and it's like that's not a real play.
Yeah.
That's not a real play to put on.
Bears don't wear all green, so we're in deep shit. So.
Well, and the issue was, I mean, regardless of what Shea ended up becoming, he was not a fit. I mean, that was pretty obvious that he was not a 4-3 defensive end. And, they
And that
bring
was
him...
and Matt, if I'm not
He's
mistaken,
not
you texted
anything,
us
though,
and you
Matt.
said
Well, yeah.
unless the Bears are switching to a 3-4, this pick makes no damn sense.
Yeah, and I mean, at least at the time, you viewed him as, okay, he looks like a guy that could be an outside, stand-up outside linebacker, kind of run around, create pressure off the edge, stuff like that. And then they put him at defensive end, and I think all of us were like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this to a guy that doesn't make sense? And then they move him to outside linebacker. He was a little bit better, but he was still pretty terrible. And then they move him to inside linebacker last year. A little bit better, but still pretty terrible. I mean, the guy got his money. I mean, good for him. He just didn't pan out like a lot of guys do. But it was just another example of that was Phil Emery deciding he was going to be smarter than everybody else in the room and take some guy with like weird upside that didn't make sense for the team that you had.
So I think it's pretty safe to say the only pick on this list so far that any of us felt even okay about was the David Terrell pick. Like the Bears picked David Terrell, and I think there was a lot of excitement because the Bears just never really ever had a wide receiver. It's like, ooh, David Terrell, that could be a lot of fun. Like we're gonna have a big wide receiver that can catch the ball, and then he couldn't catch the ball, so that kind of killed it. But
yeah, that usually helps.
We didn't second guess these picks. We first guessed them as they happened, and we did it with the number 5 one on here too. Because
This one could have been number 1. It really could have.
it's bad. It's a really, really bad pick. And it is, again, another MAC player. And I'm not saying MAC players are bad because there have been plenty of good players that have come out of the MAC. One of the best quarterbacks in the league is out of the MAC, right? So I'm not going to say, oh, don't draft MAC players. But you better be damn sure that they're going to be able to play up to the new level of competition. And they draft Dan Bazine out of Central Michigan, and you're just going, wait, hold on, that we need players, not projects. And Dan Bazine, well, he signed a 4-year contract, was placed on IR on September 1st, and then on August 29th, the next year was waived by the Bears. And that was it.
Do yourself a favor right now. If you're driving, if you're in your car, obviously I don't want you looking stuff up on your phone, but if you're at your computer, you're at home, look up Dan Bazine's football profile picture. He just looks like a guy that's like, yeah, you probably should have taken me in the second round.
Right now, I'm so excited for this moment.
He's somewhat biting his lip a little bit. And he's grinning you fuckers gave me a shitload of money and I'm terrible.
Ben, talk about Dan Bazine.
I literally know up until today when I looked, I had no idea what he even looked like because I had never he never did anything. And I'm reading an article right now written by the great David Haw, how in 2008, so this is a year after they drafted him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
December 25th, 2008, they write an article. Dan Bazine will spend all week trying to do what he can to help make Houston tackle Eric Winston's job easier Sunday against the Bears. That is Bazine's job as a member of the team's practice squad, after all. And then it has a quote from Dan Bazine. I'm Adewale Ogunleye this week, Bazine said. Knowing the Bears' defense as well as I do, yeah, right, you never played it, you jagoff. I think I'm going to give them a realistic look as possible. Or as you could get,
oh shit!
This is
18
months after you drafted him. He's a practice squad guy for the Houston Texans. This was a 2nd round pick. Jesus Christ.
I mean, right now I'm looking at his stats, I think, for like the first time in my life of when he was at Central Michigan. And I give him credit. I mean, his junior year, he had 26.5 tackles for loss, 16 sacks.
It was the MAC. It was the MAC.
Exactly. And then he had 10 sacks in his
You
senior
better
year.
you better have 50 sacks in the MAC if you're going to tell me you're going to play in the NFL. I just realized like the Bears in one draft.
Yeah, Dan Bazine, Garrett Wolf, Michael Okwa. Yeah.
God. Like that is god awful. Josh
It's not
Beekman?
good.
Did Josh Beekman
Oh, God. Forgot about Josh Beekman.
He stinks.
Did he play
Honestly,
Kevin
you
Payne?
might,
Oh my god, he was bad too. They got so
you
out of
might
this
be
draft,
able to put just the 2007 draft minus their first. I think
they
the
got
first
Greg
round-
Olson and Corey Graham out of that draft.
Yeah. Jesus.
Is there another pick on here? Please tell me they picked it. And Aaron Brandt, offensive tackle, Iowa State.
Jeez.
Yeah. Didn't even know who that is. But yeah, I mean, he stinks. Dan Bazine stinks at football. He couldn't get on the field, and the great Greg Gabriel selected him, the guy who could do no wrong. Apparently.
But hey, he'll make sure that you know that you have no experience, so you have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
Right.
neither do you. I'm just gonna put it just
Greg
like
Gabriel.
that. Fuck that guy, seriously. Hey, let's go look at how the Chicago Bears drafted Michael Haynes in 2003 as their number 4 pick, and didn't draft Troy Polamalu or Jeff
Well,
Payne or Willis
the thing-
McGahee or Dallas Clark or Larry Johnson.
The thing you
or
have
Nnamdi
to
Asomugha.
remember with this is the Bears actually had the 4th pick that year.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they traded that for the 2 number 1s. So not only did they get Michael Haynes at 14, but that means they had the 4th pick. So they would have lost out on Carson Palmer, Charles Rogers, and Andre Johnson. But they could have had Terrence Newman, Jordan Gross, Kevin Williams, Terrell Suggs, Michael Trufant.
Marcus Trufant.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Marcus Trufant. And again, we settled for Michael Haynes. And
Do you know why I was mad? I was mad when they moved the 4th overall pick because I wanted Dwayne Robertson,
yeah, a lot of people liked him, so
and then he
whatever.
sucked. So,
Yeah,
well, he
Well.
was average.
he was better than Michael Haynes.
That is very true.
It's just always
I think
great when you
played,
go to
what, 2 years.
you go to these guys' Wikipedia pages and like there's just no stats, and
That's how you know they're bad.
you're like, how are there no stats here? And then you go and look, and then you go to databasefootball.com, and you see that he played in 42 games, 5.5 sacks, 1 interception.
Yeah, I think it was for a touchdown.
And that's bad. Similar players. Oh, this is great. I'm so happy I clicked this link. Most similar player, Guy Frazier,
Oh, of course.
The great Guy Frazier.
Mark Thomas, Clarence Moore, Bill Barnett, Jermaine Phillips, Byron Darby, Thomas Burke, Dino Mangiero, Cecil Turner, and Wayne Davis.
All right.
The Michael Haynes All-Stars.
I will say though, you got to give Jerry Angelo some credit because that draft got them Lance Briggs and Charles Tillman. But
You know what,
still,
though? We always knew that. We always said he was we needed a GM just to come and draft the first-round pick.
Yeah.
And
He was good with those mid-level talents, like especially like a guy like Tillman from South Louisiana or whatever the hell that school
Louisiana Tech?
was. Louisiana Lafayette.
There you go. Yeah. God, and then you draft Rex Grossman, which then led to years of Rex as our quarterback. And that was bad. And it just... I feel like the Bears drafts are like a sprained ankle. Like, they're bad when they happen, and we're not happy with it, but then we keep playing on the sprained ankle, and it eventually turns into like a torn ACL or a
And it just
pulled groin.
lingers.
Yeah, and
for-
it just like that's the Bears draft. It's like all of their drafts are a sprained ankle, and then 3 years later we have a torn ACL, and it's like, how'd you tear your ACL? Well, I tried playing on this sprained ankle and overcompensated, and sure enough, here we are, and just bad. Okay, let's read this depressing 10 through 4. 10, Brandon Harden, bad. 9, David Terrell, bad. 8, Chris William, fat and injured. 7, Garrett Wolf, feet still dangling on the Husky bus. 6, Shea McClellan, so bad I didn't even know he signed with New England. 5, Dan Bazine, never played and is Adewale Ogunleye.
Is it sad that
story
we have two people here that just never played in the NFL, never took a snap?
It's so awful.
It's not just that they didn't play in the NFL. It's that they didn't play in the NFL and they were, what used to be day 1 draft picks.
Yeah, they were for the same draft. I just realized that.
I mean, God, that's horrendous.
Oh no, Harden was later. Sorry, my bad.
Harden was a 3rd round pick. Was 2012? That was the first year they split the draft up like this, or was he? He might have still been a day 1 pick. I mean, right? I mean, you're looking at this though. Brandon
Yeah,
Harden.
I don't remember when
he might have been a day 1 pick. Garrett Wolf was a day 1 pick. Dan Bazine was a day 1 pick. I hate this. I hate everything about the Chicago Bears when it comes to drafting. And then we get to number 3. And we're going back, and we're in the time capsule. And I love this pick because it was for my dad, and I don't know if this is true for you, Ben, but this guy was just like, my dad just thought his name was so funny and had like every dad joke.
Rashaan Salami.
You know it, right? And Ben, you know my dad better than Matt, but you could totally see my dad just doing everything to butcher that guy's name over the course of, I don't know, how many years did he play for the Bears? It doesn't even matter.
4. Or, yeah, 3.
It had to be 3 because 3 years. The next one we're going to talk about is another running back 3 years later. Yeah, Rashaan Salam, the 1994 Heisman Trophy winner, from Colorado, and he liked some weed. And by like weed, he liked weed like I like chocolate cake, which means I could have a full steak dinner and go, wait, there's chocolate cake? Yeah, I'm probably going to have a heart attack after I'm done with this.
Chocolate pie I'm going to eat after this. So.
Oh, dude, you lucky bastard. Yeah, Rashaan Salam. Who do we miss out on? Well, the biggest miss would be who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took at number 28, which is Derek Brooks. Ben, what is your favorite Rashaan Salam memory?
I remember watching a game, and this was kind of a running trend with him since he had 9 fumbles his rookie year. 9, Jesus Christ. But I remember watching a game, and Salam broke off this like huge run. He's running down the sideline.
Against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I can't remember the opponent, but he's just like running with like nobody around him, and all of a sudden, the ball just falls out of his arm.
Yeah.
Nobody touched him. Nobody came near him. He's just like running with like a guy like 10 yards behind him, and the ball just fell out. Like he had to be as high as a kite at that point to just like drop the football.
I think he said he was.
I think he admitted, yeah, he like smoked weed at halftime or something like that. Yeah, that was. I will remember that play forever, and I was 10 years old watching that. So tells you how memorable that play was. And that's the thing is like his outside of the fumbles, his rookie year was decent. I mean, still he had 10 touchdowns, almost 1,100 yards, and then it was just all downhill from there. I don't know if it was because he stunk or because he got hurt.
Well, I found this earlier today. He did an interview with the Tribune's Freddie Mitchell a few years ago, and this pretty much sums him up very, very well. This is what he said, quote, "I had no discipline. I had all the talent in the world. Great body, great genes, but I had no work ethic, and I had no discipline. The better you get, the harder you have to work. The better I got, the lazier I got." So, I mean, that just goes to show you he never had the frame of mind to be an elite running back, because I think most of it was just because everything came so easy to him. I mean, the kid was like a 5-star blue chip recruit before that was even a thing. All-American in high school, won a Heisman Trophy, smoked pot all the time. That obviously didn't help. But yeah, I mean, he did have a pretty solid rookie year. I mean, other than fumbling the ball 9 times. But man, that he got so bad so fast because he just didn't care. I mean, that's pretty evident.
He cared about one thing:
Getting high.
getting high.
Want to get high?
Yeah. Oh my God. Just so bad. Just so not good.
But guess what? It gets even worse.
It does
3
because
years later or 4 years later.
yeah, 3 drafts later. So 96 comes and goes, and the 96 draft, was that the year we traded? No, the Bears went Walt Harris. So not
Solid.
bad in 96.
Solid.
Then 1997 draft comes around, and the Bears in that draft, where are they at? They're somewhere. Did they trade the pick? I can't find them.
In what draft?
97.
That was the Rick Meyer trade.
That was the Rick Meyer trade, right?
That's when they wasted a second-round pick on John Aldred.
Yeah. So no pick there in the 97 draft, and then they were bad at football, and they were so bad at football that the NFL decided, hey, Chicago, you're so bad, we're going to give you a top 5 pick. And of course, I think we did this on the podcast. We went back and looked at that 97 season, and the Bears won a bunch of games down the stretch to take them out of the running for the number 1 pick, which was Peyton Manning. And even if you didn't get a top 1 or 2, Andre Wadsworth, I mean, he never panned out, but I think he probably had a better career than Curtis Enis.
Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson was right there. And then behind him, 6 Pro Bowlers: Kyle Turley, Greg Ellis, Fred Taylor, Trey Thomas, Keith Brooking, Takeo Spikes, Brandy Moss went 21st in that draft, Alan Faneca went in that draft.
And just think, too, I mean, if they would have somehow got number 1, got Peyton Manning, or even, I guess, got number 2 and got Ryan Leaf, granted that didn't work out, they wouldn't have made what is the number 1 worst pick in our rankings here the following year. So
yeah, so let's talk Curtis Enis here before we get on to the number 1 on this list. I don't know.
Did anybody's dad make a Curtis penis joke?
Of course. Of course my dad made a Curtis penis. Are you kidding me? I was 13 years old.
That was the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think all 3 of our dads were, they love a good dad joke. And, I mean, Rashaan Salami and Curtis Penis were just the right. And listen, to say that I wouldn't make that same joke, I can't wait for 10 years down the line when Sebastian's really excited for the NFL draft and the Bears make a pick and I start making fun of the name until he's frustrated and mad at me for doing so. Ooh, Curtis Penis, Dad, that's not his name.
I went to Curtis Enis' first game against the Jaguars. He actually did pretty well, if I remember correctly. He did a pretty decent run.
Yeah,
he didn't start because remember the Bears spent all that money on the great Edgar Bennett. So
yeah, and Curtis Enis, I mean, you go look at that career, and I mean, he ate himself out of the league, right? That's what happened, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, essentially, pretty much.
He was just bad, though.
He got supplanted by the great James Allen. And then the Bears moved him to fullback, which was even funnier too because he gained a bunch of weight and just sort of sucked. I mean, he was not good. I mean, that second year he wasn't that terrible when he got the full load. I mean, he had 916 rushing yards, but
but he averaged 3.2 yards a carry.
Yeah, and he fumbled 4 times.
Can't do that. And then 2000, started 5 games, played 12, and only had 36 carries.
And 84 yards.
3 years, though. You had 3 years of Curtis Enis, and it was, I mean, gosh. I mean, just unbelievable. Oh, he held out. So that missed 26 days of training camp. 1 start before tearing a ligament in his left
remember
knee.
I was at a Yogi Bear campground when they drafted him. I remember listening to the draft on the radio.
Yeah.
And when they were like, oh, it's Curtis Enis, I'm like, well, that sucks. I remember saying that. I was like, well, that was a bad pick. That's not going to be good. But it is what it is.
Oh, my God. All right, let's finish this thing. We're at 54 minutes, and I have lots to say about this last guy because this is the epitome of bad. He, I think he's the worst player taken. He's the worst of the five. First off, his middle name is Brem. Did you know that?
Worst of what five?
Of the five quarterbacks taken in that draft. In the
Well, no
first round.
shit.
He's worse than Akili Smith even. Yeah, I said it. I hate Cade McNown. He was an asshole, cocky son of a bitch. He couldn't throw a damn football. And of course, what happens? We traded. We had the 7 pick, so we could have stayed at 7 and drafted Champ Bailey or David Boston or Chris McAllister, or you would have even stayed at quarterback and got yourself Dante freaking Culpepper, who had himself a nice little career there before he ate himself out of the league, but still a nice career nonetheless. And no, instead, what do? We'll take the 5th guy. We'll take Cade freaking McNown. Matt, talk.
Man, you are one upset person.
hate
But I
Cade
don't.
McNown.
I don't blame you. He was pretty bad, really bad. Started 6 games his rookie year. Looked like absolute horseshit. Threw 8 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Completed 54% of his passes. He, as Scott alluded to, he was a cocky son of a bitch. That was the thing, man. I mean, he was a talented guy, and he played really, really well at UCLA. I mean, he was consensus All-American. His final year there, and everybody thought
won the Johnny Unitas Award as well.
and everybody thought that he was going to be like, I don't know if you would say the next like big thing, but I mean, he was going to be that guy. He was finally going to be that guy that takes over in Chicago. The next Jim McMahon, the next face of the franchise as a quarterback. And man, that dude just sucked. He was so bad. Like, he's one of the first ones that I really remember being really, really, really disappointed about, because like Salam, Enos, I mean, I remember it, but when you just have a quarterback and the quarterback is such like that visual thing, and he was so terrible, and that just started that run of just god awful quarterbacks for the next decade ish.
Yeah. Can we just say that the most Dick Duran thing ever just signifies his career? Dick Duran announced that Shane Matthews would be the starter, but that McNown would play at least one series every game to gain experience. Is that not the most Dick Duran thing? Here's how we're going to get you to gain some experience. You're just going to play a series every game. Just one series. You're going to get in there. That'll teach you. That'll teach you things. Ben?
Yeah, it was a bad pick. I mean, I totally forgot that the Bears traded back from 7 too. That just makes it even worse. And Jesus Christ, what a terrible draft that was. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Bears had 13 picks in that draft. And they ended up
Way
with
to go, guys.
Cade McNown, Russell Davis, Rex Tucker, Dwayne Bates, Marty Booker, Warwick Holdman, Roosevelt Colvin, Jerry Wisney, Kari Samuel, Jerry Azuma, Richard Cook, Celicio Sanford, and Jim Finn.
Hey, but Marty Booker got traded to Miami for Adewale Ogunleye, who then provided us with the damn design quote that he was Adewale Ogunleye. So wow, that draft is not all bad. We put it together. It's full circle, man. It just it all comes together now. Thankfully we drafted Marty Booker, so we could trade him for Adewale Ogunleye, who was then represented on the Houston Texans scout team by former Bear Dan Bazine, who in a quote,
I love a guy compared himself to Adewale Ogunleye and he never played it down in the NFL.
I am Adewale Ogunleye. No, you're not.
Yeah, because he was not a prince. Because Adewale Ogunleye was a prince.
Whatever.
Like an actual prince.
R.I.P. Prince.
Yeah, that was a shitty way to midweek. Hey, Prince is dead. No, he's not dead. He is. He's dead. Him and David Bowie, they were aliens that have now gone home. Let's just go with that. That makes me less sad about Prince dying. There it is. That's painful. And that, you know what's even worse is that those 10 picks don't even take into account if you go back to whatever year it was Terry Bradshaw came into the league. I don't know if you guys know the little fun fact about that. The Pittsburgh Steelers won a coin flip with the Bears that year for the number 1 pick, and the Steelers took Terry Bradshaw,
Yeah.
and the Bears took somebody. I'm gonna look it up.
So just a quick update on Dan Bazine.
Please.
Found him on Twitter.
Oh, good.
Yes.
He is the president of BCE Detroit.
What is?
Apparently, he's a beer connoisseur,
Of course. he is.
and he has 84 followers.
Shut up.
I swear to God.
I feel like the Winning City podcast needs to be his latest follow and try to get him onto the show.
His most recent retweet was J.J. Watt saying, annual reminder that it's not all about how many stars you have or how many cameras show up at your signing. It's what you do next.
He is also the father of one unique dog named Scooby. Wow, really original name there, Daniel.
Yes, the 1970 NFL draft, the Steelers picked first, the Bears picked second, but they traded that pick to the Green Bay Packers, who took Mike McCoy. So Terry Bradshaw was the number 1 pick, and the Bears had there was only one other Hall of Famer out of that draft, it looks like. And guess who drafted the other Hall of Famer in that draft?
Not the Bears.
Not the Bears.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. Really good draft for them. They get 2 Hall of Famers in the where is it?
Yeah, and one shouldn't be a Hall of Famer, but
Terry Bradshaw?
yeah.
You don't think he should be a Hall of Famer? Interesting.
Yeah, look at his numbers, man. Not that good.
Compared to the era, or just
I think in general, I mean, in the era, he was probably about the status quo, but I don't know. He got in because he won a bunch of Super Bowls.
Yeah. Mel
He
Blount.
threw over 3,000 yards twice.
Yeah, you know, the problem I have with that is I don't know enough about the stats of that era to know if it's any good. Right? I mean, looking at his career highlights, 4-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time Pro Bowler only. All AP first team All Pro 1 time in 78. NFL MVP in 78. So he had one really, really good year apparently. Led the league in passing touchdowns twice. Sportsman of the Year in 79. 70s All-Decade team. Steelers All-Time team. So I don't know.
Discussion for another day.
Yeah, where does he rank on that list? Just and you have to compare him.
Well, he wasn't in our top 10, so.
Well, that's because we said we cut it off at 80 at like 1990.
I wouldn't have put him in my top 10 anyway. So.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, whatever. I wish the Bears could even at least have could sniff. A quarterback like that.
Well, let's also remember that last year's first-round pick still hasn't played again in the NFL either.
That is very true.
Yeah, that's dangerous territory right now. Super.
Lord.
That is super dangerous territory we're in right now. Is Kevin White? He's gonna play though, right?
Yeah,
hopefully.
That's what
I
they
guess,
say.
right? I mean,
We'll
that's
see.
the plan. Oh, God. What is it just one of those things that they're just snake bitten in the draft? Like it doesn't matter who's doing the drafting. It just
Who knows, man? They gotta hit one of these years.
you would think, right? I mean,
I would hope so.
oh my goodness. All right. Closing thoughts, Ben, on the NFL draft and how much you love it. Or by the way,
I love it. Just,
3 Rashad Salam, 2 Curtis Enos, 1 Cade McNown. The rest of the list was bad too. All you need to know is this is a team of awful. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah.
Your final thought.
I just hope they don't blow it this year. That's it.
What would be them blowing it for you?
To be determined.
Yeah. Taking a quarterback would be, but if he I mean, again, I guess it's to be determined. How about he play if he has to at least play it down this year? Expecting your first round pick to play it down this year. And doesn't miss a
And
season for shin splints.
and for you, Paxton Lynch is just not somebody that you don't think he's a top talent, so it's not.
Yeah,
That's why you're anti to that pick.
Yeah, and I don't know. I honestly don't know. I guess I could probably talk myself into Paxton Lynch, but I don't think he's. Yeah,
I don't disagree.
these quarterbacks that jump on the scene like that always worry me.
Yeah. So you're excited, and we're watching it together Thursday. So
Yep.
let's maybe we'll try to get the Winded City Twitter going. We'll talk about we'll make fun of the picks that happen and try to reference who's the next Dan Bazine. Matt Urich, closing thoughts as we approach the draft on Thursday.
Closing thoughts, shameless plugs on my end, putting in a bunch of work this week, so head over to Bleach Report, specifically if you're a Bears fan. I will be updating a draft tracker Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, offering up some draft grades, my thoughts and analysis on each pick. We'll also have on draft day on Thursday, Friday, as well as Saturday, updated mock drafts, updated top 100 big boards all 3 days. So going into the final picks, I'll have big boards up for all of those. If for some reason you're not a Bears fan, for some reason you're a Vikings fan, I will have a piece up on Saturday morning at today's Pigskin regarding their day 2 draft pick. So a lot of stuff for me coming up the next few days. Will be a lot of fun, will be a lot of work, but I love this time of year. It's my absolute favorite time of the year. So
very cool, and I hope I'm not disappointing you. I can't even remember the last time a Bears draft pick got me excited. A first round pick at least, because even like Kyle Long, it was like there were a lot of questions there, because he hadn't really played a lot in college. So it's like, did we do it again? Did we really do this again? And yeah.
Oddly enough, I think the last guy I was excited about was Gabe Karimi, just because it seemed like great value, but that didn't work out.
It didn't. Well,
did not.
You couple this list with the Hawks loss on Monday, and it was a pretty bummerific 2 episodes of Winded City this week. But you know what? That's what the Hawks do, man, or that's what Chicago fans do. We like to latch onto that stuff. I just want to say right now, I need Joe Madden to send his T-shirt over to the Bears. Try not to suck.
Oh, there you go.
That's what he needs to send over there. Like, hey guys, try not to suck. So, Ben, really, last question. Do you have a prediction for who the Bears draft at 11? Like, who do you really like?
I think it's going to be everything that I've read right now says they really like Shaq Lawson. So if he's there, that's who I'd expect them to pick.
Matt, your selection?
Read my mock draft on Thursday.
Oh,
Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's Ezekiel Elliott. I think that's the safe pick, and I think the one that's just gonna make next season unbearable is Paxton Lynch. And I don't think they'll go Paxton Lynch, but if they do, I don't know that I can handle like week 3 and the Bears are 0-2 or 0-3 going into week 3 0-2 and the meathead callers, it's time to play Paxton Lynch, because you know it'll happen.
Yeah.
You know it'll happen, and it'll be awful. So there it is. All right. So for Ben Russo and Matt Urich, I'm Scott Sternal. Check out Bleacher Report for Matt Urich's stuff this week. I'm sure Ben will get the itch sometime between now and Thursday to put something up, or maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And again, if you're on the Twitter at Matt Urich, he is a bowling all-star. So congratulate Matt on his tremendous accomplishment. Be sure to subscribe, and thanks for listening.